much, James. Very inspiring presentation and drawing on some great names in the profession. I've been asked to talk about Genesis in Africa, and I think this used to say something about unlocking value in Africa, but maybe not tonight. Our role as a firm that operates across the African continent is something that I think has defined us from the very start. So I guess my life in the rest of Africa started when I was in Matric, but most importantly when I was posted to the Ugandan government in 1992. And at the time, most of you won't remember because you weren't born, but before 1994, South Africans were not allowed to travel to many African countries. So I could only work in Uganda because I had a British passport. And when people ask me where I came from, I used to say I came from the Isle of Wight, which is a small island in the south of England. But it was also quite descriptive of where I actually came from, which was South Africa at the time. But that experience enabled us to, when I joined Genesis and before that Standard to really hit the ground running as a company that had people who were not just grounded in South Africa, but had a deep understanding of conditions in the rest of Africa, and who could do work and add value to clients across the continent. So from the very start of Genesis, from I think 2000 onwards, we have been very actively involved in assisting companies and working with clients across the continent. And this really is something that is very part of our identity, part of why we have so much fun, how we create so much diversity in the work we do, and what defines us as a firm then and today. And it might be useful just to cast our minds back to what Africa looked like in 1998. Well, at the time, South Africa accounted for 40% of the continent's GDP. Does anyone know what it accounts for today? Trudy?
You can't blame her yet.
Yeah, no, I can't blame Trudy. No, it's not your fault. It accounts for about 18% of the continent's GDP. So our contribution to the continent has shrunk dramatically. But conversely, other countries have expanded enormously, and we have been part of that journey. And so when we look forward, the fact that we are already deeply vested in working across the continent is a very important part of our future growth story. In 1998, South Africa, the Nigerian economy was about $50 billion. South Africa was about 137. Now we're about roughly the same size. So
we don't trust those Nigerians.
We don't trust those numbers, but I think they're probably still ahead of us. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a continent in which the three largest economies are deeply mired in economic recession or deep problems. So we still have a lot of work to do. This is not a continent where all the work that economists can do has been done. The world has also changed profoundly across the continent. In 1998, the number of phones per person in Uganda was 1 per 100, literally 1 per 100. Now, it's 120 lines per 100 people. It's that dramatic transition. So as a firm, we have been advising a lot of clients in understanding how this economy is changing and how, to some extent, this digital world is now evolving. And certainly, we're going to be unveiling in the next year a whole lot of focuses around youth and digitization across the continent. How we can make sure that these two things become assets as opposed to liabilities for the continent. And we haven't just worked in, I think, the obvious places, Nigeria, Kenya. I'm not sure whether anyone's been on these projects, but just to give you a sense of the most extreme projects we've done money transfers in Somalia. Okay, from Dubai, not from Somalia, but we've done work in Somalia. We've done work on the fishing industry in Mauritania, complete opposite end of the continent. We've done work on microfinance in Niger, probably one of the poorest countries, I think the poorest country in the world. We've done work in all the other countries that you're all familiar with. We try and do lots of work in Mauritius for obvious reasons. Bhavani leads that initiative. So we really have got a tremendous footprint across this continent. And I think if you ask any of the people who've been in financial services practice about anecdotes, they will provide you all sorts of anecdotes which I should not provide you today. And many of them are here tonight, so by all means seek them out and ask them of their experience. I'm looking at Debbie, I'm thinking of a beach in Ghana. I'm looking at Korstian, I'm thinking of a bar of Mozambique. And I'm looking at Simon, can't remember where that was. And so lots and lots of wonderful experiences of the team across the continent. Looking forward, we have now achieved some very significant milestones. We have a deeply entrenched, well-established and growing office in Kenya. We have, I think, 12 people in that office. And this has, again, transformed the amount of business we can win in that market. And we hope to repeat this success in other markets. I think those of you that have been around Genesis for long enough have known that creating satellite offices has not always been our greatest strength, but we've broken through that. We have a great operation in Kenya, and I'd like to acknowledge the two people who lead that office, Amreen and Shazad, who are not here, who are actually married to each other, but that's another story, both in different practices. I'd also like to just remind everyone that Africa is our home. It's not a dangerous place. We have had people traveling in and out of the countries in the rest of Africa for the last 20 years. I think we have 3 people who've missed flights, and we have never had any issues. We've only had one incident, I think, in the last 20 years where people had some health issues. And much of that is because of the support we get from Sue, who's here tonight, somewhere in the audience. Sue has been our travel partner for all this period. And at this point, I calculated the number of flights FSS takes in a year. It's about 350 flights. So Sue's been there for us at any time of the day or night to get us in and out of where we need to go to. So thank you, Sue, for enabling us in that way. So I think that's all I wanted to say about Africa. It is our home. It is something that's made a real it's a distinctive aspect of our company and of our culture, and we look forward to another 10 or 20 years in this continent where we continue to grow and expand. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Richard. I think if we look back on our own first 20 years of life, we realize that a lot happens. We're born, we go to school, we learn about a whole lot of things that we never ever use. We try to figure out what we want to do with our lives, and when we haven't figured that out, we become consultants. I think Genesis has gone through a similar sort of path. It started off in what Didi calls that god-awful room in Blair Gowrie, but it started and made some friends. In the private and the public sector, made its first million, and it moved into swanky new digs in Hyde Park, which it also renovated, because nothing says you're 20 like a grass wall and some vertical lines. But of course, we traveled, and like Richard said, we've opened offices in Nairobi and London, and we want to just think that the space is more than the people and the space we occupy. It's really about the work we do, because, to be honest, that's what pays our salaries. So we want to give you a snapshot. My colleagues and I are going to tell you just some of the things. It's not all of them, because we've done so much great things, but just some of the good things that we've done over the last 20 years.
All right, hostels for 25,000 students. So the Genesis Analytics company was contracted by the National Treasury of Kenya to undertake a feasibility study of PPP, which is public-private partnerships, hostels accommodation. And this is for 5 universities across the country in Kenya. As the lead consultant of 8 firms, our job is to ensure that the projects go from the feasibility stage, where you determine whether projects are bankable, right to the end where you find a preferred bidder. The project is currently at procurement stage, where we have selected 5 bidders to submit their bids, which are due to come in tomorrow. And our key role, I think, what really made a